In business operations, there is a harsh dividing line between companies that succeed and companies that merely survive. Before a firm can even attempt to capture market share, it has to pass a rigid, binary test. You cannot win a market until you prove your supply chain is actually equipped to participate in it. In operation strategy, the baseline performance criteria required to enter a customer's consideration set are called order qualifiers. This graph shows how customers evaluate potential suppliers. Notice that as operational performance increases along the x-axis, customer consideration on the y-axis does not gradually slope upward. It stays completely flat at 0 until it hits a precise operational threshold, usually defined by strict price limits, minimum quality standards, or baseline delivery speeds. Only then does it step straight up to considered. Hitting this threshold does not win you the contract. It only prevents the buyer from immediately throwing your proposal in the trash. If your performance falls anywhere in this highlighted zone below the line, you are entirely excluded from the market. Customers do not grade these baselines on a curve. If a manufacturer requires a defect rate below 1%, a supplier offering a 2% defect rate at a steep discount is not a competitive option. They are a disqualified option. Establishing this baseline is the absolute prerequisite to any strategic action. Without it, you are out of the game. Within a broader supply chain strategy, order qualifiers serve 3 specific structural purposes. The first is market access. Without meeting the specific tolerances required by a target demographic, a firm cannot physically or legally sell to them. The qualifier is the literal entry ticket. The second purpose is customer trust. Clearing these minimum hurdles proves to the market that a firm has the baseline reliability and professional competence required to handle their business. The third is strategic focus. By clearly mapping out these operational limits, management can actively avoid pouring capital into markets they are not equipped to service. A structural failure in any one of these 3 areas results in the immediate rejection of the product. It does not matter how innovative your secondary features are if you cannot meet the basic access requirements. Identifying these minimums acts as a defensive shield, protecting the firm against catastrophic misallocation of time and resources. To see how these absolute thresholds operate in practice, we have to look at how specific supply chains establish their baseline metrics. This table breaks down mandatory requirements across 3 different sectors. The automotive sector enforces some of the most rigid baselines. For automotive suppliers, ISO-certified quality systems and strict 98% delivery rates are not marketing features. They operate strictly as mandatory entry tickets. The reality of this threshold is severe. If a parts supplier consistently hits a 95% delivery rate, the automaker does not evaluate them on competitive pricing. The automaker simply deletes them from the bidding pool. Looking at the e-commerce row, the requirements shift to consumer expectations. Secure online payment processing and a clearly defined return policy function as invisible prerequisites for a customer to even consider completing a checkout. In the B2B industrial equipment sector, buyers immediately disqualify a manufacturer that lacks strict compliance with safety standards or guaranteed long-term availability of spare parts. Across every industry, these baseline metrics act as binary gatekeepers. If the operations team fails to meet them, no amount of aggressive sales or clever marketing can save the deal. This strict division creates a unique structural relationship between the minimum requirements to compete and the factors that actually secure the contract. The features or services that actually convince a customer to choose your product over the competition are called order winners. The sequence here is entirely rigid. You cannot successfully pitch an order winner to a prospective client if you have not first secured the entry ticket of an order qualifier. This chart shows how customers psychologically evaluate these baselines. Order qualifiers occupy a specific position. They are non-negotiable, and they are generally common across all viable competitors in a given market. Crucially, they are completely invisible when met. A customer does not actively praise a global supply chain for ensuring a toy is safe or that a package arrived on time. They simply expect it. In contrast, failing a basic expectation is highly visible. Delivering a defective batch or missing a shipment window causes disproportionate immediate damage to brand trust. Order qualifiers represent an asymmetric operational risk. There is zero upside for meeting them, but absolute destruction for missing them. This asymmetry drives a central rule of operations strategy. A firm must first achieve baseline parity with its competitors before pursuing any competitive advantage. There is a persistent misconception among managers that if a company simply excels at its baseline metrics, it will automatically win the market. This chart shows why that assumption is structurally flawed. Look at the curve for supply chain A. They are continuously investing resources to push their on-time delivery metric from 98% to 99.9%. Their return on investment flatlines. Now look at supply chain B. They stop their delivery investment exactly at the required 98% threshold and redirect their remaining capital into an entirely different category, an order winner, causing their returns to spike upward. By identifying the exact point where customer expectations are met, supply chain B frees up the capital required to build actual competitive differentiation, whether that means specialized custom tooling or advanced software integration. This trade-off principle directly dictates practical engineering tasks, such as designing service-level agreements, which are formal contracts defining the expected service between a vendor and a client, and setting minimum key performance indicators. Key performance indicators are quantifiable metrics used to track specific operational goals. The ultimate conclusion here is counterintuitive. Overachieving on a qualifier actively destroys competitiveness. It drains the exact resources that should be funding your order winners. Operational baselines are highly dynamic. The threshold to enter a market today will not be the same threshold required tomorrow. Rising expectations and digital transparency push the operational baseline higher. Premium features inevitably decay into standard requirements. Take ESG standards. Previously, carbon tracking and ethical sourcing were rare differentiators. Today, they have slid down to become mandatory prerequisites for institutional contracts. Supply chains that attempt to rely on yesterday's winners will suddenly find themselves merely qualified. Their competitive edge is completely stripped away by the rising market standard. This leaves operations managers with two core takeaways. First, hitting your qualifiers strictly prevents you from losing, but it will never guarantee that you win. Second, efficient resource allocation requires strict discipline. You must secure parity on the baselines before you authorize funding for any market differentiators. This forces operations teams to ask a critical question. Are we currently over-investing in our qualifiers while under-investing in our winners? Every operations strategy must be continuously audited. You have to locate where your capital is going and ensure your supply chain is fully prepared for the inevitable day when your current competitive advantage becomes the market's mandatory minimum.